and/or views on which they are seeking to be elected to fill the office of the Third Ward Council. There are 5 Third Ward candidates, but you will only vote for one candidate in the Third Ward. The candidates are listed on the general election ballot on the I line at the bottom of your mail-in ballot. And today, we are presented with the names of the candidates are Mr. Chauncey I. Brown III. I did not get a response if he's attending or not. Next candidate, Mr. Sharif Bugg, who will be here in a couple of minutes. And we have with us present Mr. William Bill McCoy. Mr. Alex Mendes is present, and Ms. Robin Spencer. So the 5 candidates, Mr. Brown, Mr. Bugg, Mr. McCoy, Mr. Mendes, and Ms. Spencer. Please use this forum to familiarize yourselves with the candidates as well as to listen to their views. As moderator, I will strictly enforce the time allotted to each candidate, maintain the quorum of discipline, and will intervene in the event of any deviations from the spirit and the purpose of the forum. I must ask the candidates to show respect and courtesy to each other. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to present his or her opening statement in alphabetical order. Each candidate is permitted to ask the other candidates 3 questions in one round. The responsive candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. There will be absolutely no rebuttal by any candidate, whether you are the one asking or responding to a question. Candidates will have 5 minutes to wrap up or give or her closing remarks. Today, I'm joined by my deputy clerk, Ms. Jacqueline Murray, Mr. John Ming, and Ms. Nancy Gray, who is in the control room. And at this time, I would like to say thank you to everyone, and we will now begin the forum. The candidates are listed in alphabetical order. At this time, Mr. Chauncey I. Brown III, who is not present at this time, Mr. Sharif Bugg, who I think is running a couple minutes late. So I will begin with Mr. William Bill McCoy. Mr. McCoy, you may begin your 5 minutes opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Madam Clerk, members of your staff, to the listening audience, to the constituents of the Third Ward, to the candidates tonight that are contesting for the Third Ward seat. I extend to you greetings. Allow me firstly to express to residents and those that are viewing my profound condolences to those in the audience who have suffered loss during the time of this COVID-19 pandemic. I know that many of you, as I have lost close friends and constituents and neighbors during this time, and I extend to you my deep condolences. Let me also express my thanks and appreciation to Madam Clerk, to the Deputy Clerk, as well as the Municipal Council and Council President Flavio Rivera for convening this opportunity whereby we may be able to present our platform and our case to the voters in the Third Ward. Let me introduce myself. I am Councilman Bill McCoy, and I am competing for another term to represent the Third Ward in this great city of Paterson. Let me share with you a little bit of my story. My story is an immigrant story. I, along with my siblings, migrated to these United States to join my mom in 1972. I'm a graduate of John F. Kennedy High School, went on to work to William Paterson University, William Paterson College at the time, and graduated with an accounting degree. Went on to work for one of the largest telecommunication companies, New Jersey Bell at that time, as part of Ma Bell, or became Verizon as you know it today. I've been married to the love of my life, Brenda McCoy, for the last 37 years. We have 3 children that all attended Paterson Public School, were grown up here in the city of Paterson, one of whom is a recently joined the Paterson Police Department and is working for our city. My daughter is an engineer, works for the government in providing protective gear and ammunition for our troops, and my oldest works in New York at a pharmaceutical company. It is because of them and my concern and their encouragement that I started my relationship with public service. And in fact, I began when my children were very young and attended preschool, Love and Care. As you recently noted in the paper, the executive director has recently passed and was was the first African American freeholder, Georgia Scott. And to her, I owe a profound gratitude for her support. It is with her support and Councilman and then Homeschool Council Vice President Davis that I got into the process of elected office and was elected to the school board, served 2 terms, and subsequently elected to the city council in 2000. I come to you having achieved a level of success in bringing new businesses to our city. As you have noted, the Route 20 corridor now brings us over $3 million in income and taxes each year. We've able to develop affordable housing in the Heritage, Christopher Hope, Rising Dove, and other areas in our city, Freedom Village, during the time that I served on the municipal council. Improve our public service and policing with the new 911 operational center in our city, and help to develop Eastside Park, starting with the horse barn, which was dilapidated. We used some funding to do that, as well as the field house that's there now with a handicap bathroom facility, not to mention the Larry Doby Field, which we have been able to improve and put online. Clearly, with all of the discussion that's been happening with regards to parks, there's more to be done, but we believe that with strong commitment, we'll be able to accomplish that. In these 20 years or 24 years of total public service, I believe that honesty and integrity, someone you can trust, is a hallmark for all of us as representatives. And in order for us to leave a stake for our youth and our young people, our children, we must be able to do that in an honest way as representative of the people. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, having served you for this time, having shown you my competency in terms of my financial background, my corporate experience, and being able to apply that in my city function to deliver good government, I ask you to consider 1A on the ballot as we move towards November 3rd. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you and be well.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We'll now move on to Mr. Alex Mendes, who will have his opening statement, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome, sir.
For the opportunity, and hello, Paterson. It is a privilege for me to be here. I would like to first thank God for the opportunity of just being here, addressing and putting my platform in front of all the voters in the Third Ward. Before I start, I would like to express my deepest condolences to all those families and friends that lost a loved one during this terrible pandemic. I have the experience of losing close friends and family members in this difficult time. But God is good and God is great. And also, I would like to take this time to thank all the residents of the Third Ward for the incredible support that I've been receiving through this election process. My name is Alex Mendes. I'm running for councilman of the Third Ward in the great city of Paterson on Line 2I. It's been a great privilege for me to serve in this community. For the past 15 years, I started as a board member at the Paterson Board of Education, impacting the life of our student in a positive way for almost 2 terms. I also have the privilege to serve as a councilman at large, and now I'm here to be back at the council. And my passion for the city is what keeps me working around the clock, the 12 year round. You see Alex Mendes in action in every corner. I was one of the first ones on the scene during this terrible COVID-19 pandemic, helping our residents with face masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, delivering food to the senior to make sure that they stay safe. We just finished giving out our laptop giveaway for our students to make sure that they stay home, receiving their education online. We annually continue with our school scholarship award, giving out thousands of dollars for our students. Forum to help our local business to grow and apply for loans. Forum to help our Patersonians to become homeowners. School supplies giveaway. Clean up campaign to keep our city clean. And we could continue on and on and on with my activity in the city of Paterson. And I do this because I love the city and I love to serve the community. And I am committed to continue serving the residents of the Third Ward with the same passion and love that I've been doing this for the past 15 years. We all agree that the quality of life in the Third Ward has been decreasing drastically. Safety is a problem, the lack of service, and our homeowners are crying because of the high taxes that we're facing. I'm excited to get into the council and to put a plan in place to stop this situation in the Third Ward, and I'm looking forward. And one of the things that I'm going to start is addressing the problem that we have with the taxes by making sure and holding the administration accountable for the decision that they're making that are impacting our homeowners and the taxes. We have to look into position. We have to check the budget line item by line item. We have to eliminate those additional expenditures that are in the budget. Those are the decisions that I'm ready to make to go back into our neighborhood and save our homeowners in the city of Paterson. I'm ready, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to serve the community starting November the 3rd as your new councilman in the Third Ward. God bless you, Paterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendes. We'll now have opening remarks by Ms. Robin Spencer. You may begin. Thank you.
Imagine waking up in the morning, getting in your car, driving, and at the first traffic light, you are greeted by a vagrant. Someone from out of town on drugs, begging for money, and they're there from the time you leave until the time you return. Imagine walking down the street and your neighbor's garbage is being picked at by squirrels, later raccoons, and then the skunk, and now the mice, bringing more rodents into the city simply because we are not following the rules and the ordinances. Imagine your neighbor who started a business is now riddling your street with commercial vehicles that are not being addressed after 10 p.m. And lastly, imagine paying the highest amount of taxes in the city and having the worst streets filled with potholes. And let us not forget being exhausted at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. And you call for assistance, and unfortunately, because it is not a violent crime, it may not be addressed. Unfortunately, the Third Ward residents no longer have to imagine any of these. Issues of quality of life has gone down and spiraled. My name is Robin Spencer. Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Clerk and Deputy Clerk, and the residents of the city of the Third Ward. I am a product of the Third Ward. My parents, my mom also, a bell operator, as well as a secretary for Paterson Task Force, and my father, a machine mechanic for DuPont of 25 years. Both of my parents raised me and my siblings to have altruism, self-respect, and the importance of education. And as a result, all of us are in a career of public service. My daughter is also a public servant. And for many years, I have supported various organizations, be it monetary or physically. And back in 2008, under Senator Girgenti, I received the 2008 Volunteer Award for Passaic County. I have decided, based on the change in my community, to bring my skills to the forefront and bring them to leadership. As a result, I am ready to sit on the board and represent you, encourage economic development, encourage innovative thinking, encourage a higher standard of quality of life, as well as break down barriers, which is what we need in a very diverse population in the city of Paterson. It is with much hope you will change your mindset and have an open mind for a new person into politics that has the same care and concerns as you, and vote Robin Spencer for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. We now have Mr. Sharif Bugg, who joined us. Mr. Bugg, we are in the opening statement. You may present your 5-minute opening statement remarks at this time. Mr. Bugg, you may begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome, sir.
Sharif Bugg, 5I on the ballot. Born and raised in the city of Paterson, I graduated from Passaic County Community Tech. I continued my education at Passaic Community College and eventually earned my bachelor's degree from Somerset College. I have been employed by the Paterson Public School District for 17 years. My wife, Faith, and I have been married for 19 years and cherish 3 beautiful children. We have fostered over 8 children. I serve as the former assistant pastor of Koinonia Christian Ministry in the 3rd Ward. In that capacity, I dedicated myself to community service, from starting a food pantry to serving the homeless and advocating for the disabled. I was named the president of the Hearing Loss Association of American Paterson chapter in 2015. I served on the Passaic County Community College Alumni Committee. I am the executive director of Growing Grace Counseling Group, a nonprofit organization that focused on mental health awareness in the urban community. I currently serve as the chair of the Willie Peterkin Foundation in Paterson, where we rebuild basketball court within the city of Paterson, but at no cost to the city. As a leader within the Bugg Foundation, making contributions to improve quality of life by addressing gun violence, fighting for safer park, pushing for enforcement, helping our seniors get their needs addressed. That's the step for me to begin to run for council. It confirmed what I knew from an early childhood, that people matter. My campaign is not about me, but it's about you and I. What can we do to make the difference? What can we do to improve our ward? What can we do to make our voice count? That's what my campaign is about. Sharif Bugg, 5I on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bugg. We have now completed our first segment of this forum, our opening remarks. We'll now move on to our question and answer portion. We now begin with Mr. Sharif Bugg, who will ask 3 questions of his candidates. Mr. Bugg, you may begin. Mr. Bugg, can you hear me very well?
Say that again?
You can hear me okay, sir?
Yes, a little bit, yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
My question it for Bill McCoy and Alice Mendes. The city had been on transitional or state aid for some time now that had added to the burden of taxpayers almost every year now. Can you tell the resident approximately how much transitional aid the city has received over the 15 years? And during your tenure as a councilman, what effort have you made or recommend to slow move the city away from it?
Mr. Bugg, would you like to begin with Mr. McCoy or Mr. whichever?
I guess we're going down that way, yes.
So Mr. McCoy. Okay, thank you. Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Bugg, for the question. Transitional aid is really funding to assist the city in meeting our budget obligation. Many people look at it as aid clearly, but Paterson has been providing services to our surrounding communities for many, many years for which we have not been compensated. So transitional aid is a part of that. We have been receiving $25 to $27 million within the last few years, and over 15 years, I guess you could multiply that, extrapolate it, and see the kinds of funding that we've received. I don't believe that we ought to look at that simply as aid to the city. I think it's more state support for the services that we're providing, and it does give us a boost in our budget to balance out our budget. So it is something that we look forward to receiving from the state. We believe we have earned it, and without it, our taxes would have gone up tremendously. So instead of contributing a 2%, you'd be tripling or 7 times that amount when you look at the $27 million aid that we received to our budget. It allows us to balance our budget and to ease the burden to the taxpayers of the city of Paterson. And I think the city of Paterson, for the services that it provides, should be getting that aid in a straight way. However, DCA applies some requirements to that. We have some agreements as a result of it, and that's the purpose behind transitional aid. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mendes, I think you're next.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The answer from Mr. Bugg is that this is a very important topic, Mr. Bugg, because understanding that the $27 million that now we're receiving on transitional aid help us to balance the budget. The concern that I have with this is that every year we asking the state for more and more and more money. Every year. If you go back 15 years ago and you look at where we are now, we're increasing the number every year. And I understand that we're providing a service to the county, but I would like to see, and that's something that I will work on as soon as I become the councilman of the 3rd Ward, how and we're going to hold the administration accountable to make sure that we take the right decision to implement program and save money in different areas. That way we don't have to depend on the transitional aid. We serve the county, but that money is not free. Through DCA, we have to go through a lot of requirement to get those $27 million. And my dream is to see in the future Paterson free of that money from the state, and the only way it's going to happen is by putting a plan together, a long-term plan on how we're going to bring more business into the city, how we're going to increase our collection of revenue in the city. It's a whole plan, and it's a long-term plan. We cannot continue depending on the state forever because, like I mentioned before, that money is not free. There's a lot of requirement that we have to go through to receive those $27 million. And in the past, we have to wait for the last inning for us to receive that money from the state. And my goal and my dream, like I said, is to see the city of Paterson moving on the direction that we could control our budget, that we could produce those $27 million, bringing the revenue that we need, and putting more and more property into the tax roll and being more responsible with the budget, more responsible with the money that we're spending, and making sure that we don't spend the money that we don't have. Thank you.
My next question is for each candidate. Many of the senior citizens in the 3rd Ward are the backbone of which Paterson was built. Now, as they reach the evening of their lives, it's difficult to navigate in the city in an effort to maintain their sanity. They either don't drive. If they do, there's not accessible parking downtown in the Paterson area. The majority of them are not technically savvy. What would you do to make it easier for them to have access to the service within the 3rd Ward, and not only just the 3rd Ward, the 13th District?
Mr. Bugg, would you like to?
Sorry, we can start from McCoy.
From Councilman, okay.
Thank you. Clearly, our seniors represent a very important constituency within our city and certainly within the 3rd Ward. The Riverside Vets area is designated and set up as a senior center that allow for service delivery to our seniors. Clearly, as a city, we owe a debt and an obligation to our seniors to make sure that they have access to the services that we provide. And so within our Department of Human Services, there are programs set for the administration to ensure that the delivery of services to our seniors. We can have various resources. Certainly my office is always available to our seniors to refer them to the different service agencies and programs within our city and make sure they are aware of those benefits to them. And we look to continue to do that as a council person to make myself accessible and available to them to provide assistance where needed. But clearly our seniors are an important constituent. The function of the mayor and the administration and the council supports that within the context of our budget and within the context of our program as we support those initiatives to benefit our senior citizens and all residents of the ward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bott, for your question. And I would like to start by saying that in the last debate that we have, I made the official announcement that I'm going to have an office open for the public right in the 3rd Ward. And we're gonna start by assisting our senior to be able to help them to freeze their taxes. There's a lot of programs out there that benefit our senior and they're not receiving that help. As you all know, I've always been available and accessible to the community, and my passion is to serve the people, serving the residents of the city of Paterson, and I'm excited about the service that we're gonna be able to provide from that location, but we're going to start by helping our senior to be able to freeze their taxes through the state application that there is in place, and many other programs that we're going to be able to help them, just to and making sure that the administration continue providing the service that they should in the 3rd Ward. But our responsibility and our plan with my team leaders is going to be to make sure that that office is going to be effective to provide those additional service to be able to help our seniors in the 3rd Ward. Thank you.
Ms. Spencer, you may begin.
Okay, good evening again.
Good evening.
Naturally, our seniors who have invested their life and time into the city deserves respect in their ending days. There should be a senior service hub like Uber to provide transportation to their locations, as well as we should have a mobile unit with services that are common to the seniors so we can meet them instead of them leaving their homes. Thank you.
My last question. Considering Paterson unemployment rate historically has almost doubled, and that is the average rate across the state, outside of housing development construction jobs, what effort have you initiated to bring in new jobs and tax rateable? What was the specific benefit to the resident and taxpayer? So those questions will be, again, for Alice and McCoy, and we can begin with Alice. Mendes.
Thank you. Mr. Bugg, did you say you would begin with Mr. Mendes?
Say it again.
Did you want to begin the question?
I thought I said, I didn't, did it?
You did, but I wanted to make sure. Is it for Council
Yeah, for Alex, yeah.
former
I'm sorry.
Councilman Mendes? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. My apologies, I didn't hear you correctly. But, you know, this question, it really reflects and connect our effort with the business owner. For years, we've been putting together a forum to help our local business to understand the process on how to apply for loans, to help them increase their business and make sure that they bring those mom and pop stores to another level. Why? Because that's one of the most direct way to create job in our community. We have to keep in mind that by supporting local business, making sure that they grow, we create those local jobs, those additional jobs, and I'm going to continue to do that. One of the plans that we have with our team, my team leaders, is a aggressive plan in partnership with all the other entities, Wells Fargo's, TD Bank, those entities that are out there, to make sure that they come to Paterson and help our local business go through the process on how to apply for additional loan. That way they could expand their business and also create those additional positions that they need to serve the community. That's the first step. Now, one of the biggest concerns that I have in terms of create more job and employment in the city is that we have in place a residency law in place. And the administration very oftentimes violate that law by hiring people from outside. I will make sure, as your councilman, I will make sure that any position that is available in the city of Paterson, we will look into a Patersonian first, Patersonian second, and Patersonian third. And there's anybody with the qualification, then we go outside. But you see this very often time that there's position available that we could use to help our Patersonian get a job and serve the city where they live. You see that those positions, they go to out of town. They hire people from out of town. And there's a law in place that stop that. Now, it's the council's responsibility to look into that. The administration's responsibility is to hire the personnel, but it's our decision to make sure that those jobs stay in Paterson. Thank you.
We're moving on to Ms. Spencer. Mr. Bob?
I believe, okay, read it again.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're exceeded your...
You said only Mendes and McCoy.
Only those two candidates you wanted to respond to the question. So you have exceeded your 3 questions.
Right, but I asked that question to both candidates, right?
Yes, both answered.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. We'll now move on to Mr. McCoy. Yes, Mr. McCoy, you did answer the 3rd question. You didn't?
Not the last question.
Not the
'cause
last
he-
question.
he
You started with...
with-
Okay, you're right.
Read it again or no?
He only indicated he started with
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mendes.
You're correct.
So,
Yeah.
let me say that this is a success story that has really gone unnoticed or unreported. It seemed to be one that is easily overlooked. Clearly, it talks about how do you help how do you help the unemployment rate outside of housing and housing development? Well, the 3rd Ward for the last 20 years since I've been the council representative, I've seen a massive increase in terms of jobs and businesses that have come to the 3rd Ward that were not there before. We're a model to the state in how to take dilapidated, abandoned buildings, such as the whole Coca-Cola building, the paper mill factory, the other dye factory that was now where Home Depot is, and transform them into economic engines, providing jobs, providing opportunities, and providing services to our community. Not only that, the Route 20 corridor now, on a limited basis, provides over $3.5 million in additional revenues to the city of Paterson. This is $3.5 million that were not there before that would have impacted our budget and caused our tax to go up. By providing this additional revenue, we can stabilize our tax situation. Even though we're still a transitional age city, we're much better off today than we were 15 years ago. Yes, housing does impact that. You've seen that with the heritage that we have changed from Alabama with the development now of new housing. We're doing the very same thing with Riverside Terrace, and that also is providing employment opportunity, skill development, for Pattersonians right here in the city of Paterson. Most of the employees at these businesses are Paterson residents. So you could move right from Riverside Terrace right into Home Depot and get employment and get a job. So I'm grateful to see the kind of economic impact that has been happening in the Third Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We'll now move on to Mr. McCoy, who will ask questions, 3 questions of his opponents. Mr. McCoy, you may begin. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome, sir.
This question is for all 3 candidates. During the last Monday's NAACP candidate forum, a member of the audience asked this very important question. And I won't develop a question of my own. I'd really just adapt that question and ask it tonight. And given our and the question was, what is your understanding of the function of a member of the municipal council under Paterson's form of government? And I'll start with Mr. Bogg, and we'll move our way down to Ms. Spencer.
The function of the role of the city council is to be a governing body that deal directly with the administration to mayors, the mayor and council governance structure. And with that being said, they oversee and help push law and resolution and adopt the budget, and as well as oversee some of the technology stuff of the city. With that being said, I would like to add that in today's time, the city council role has to be more transparent in terms of hosting town hall meetings, not with the administration, but on their own, and get a feedback to be able to address some of those legislation that push before them and knowing how to vote on those issues. So when they vote, they make sure that they heard the resident, that they make sure they heard the people that voted them in. Now, we understand that council have the ability to be able to look at laws and ordinance and pass them and to be able to put them in place that will be on the book. And also put the responsibility on the mayor to be able to use his resource to enforce those laws. But my interpretation that I think is more important now today is that the council needs to be able to communicate, mobilize, and educate the resident about the structure of the government, take their input, and put it in place before the city council so they know that their voice is being heard. Thank you.
Sure, and to answer that question, under the Fortnite Act, our former government is, as we all know, a strong mayor, a strong council. Our job as a council members, we're legislator, we create laws and legislation to put it in place to conduct the city, balance the budget, and also the most important thing, holding the administration accountable on those decisions that are affecting our residents. And that's my biggest concern right now. This is the time for us to sit down and look at the decision that is being made in this governing body that are affecting the public. We understand that legislation in place is our job, making sure that we oversee, look at the budget, balance the budget. But on top of that, we have to hold the administration accountable because those decisions are hitting our community. And not only that, I'm always going to put on top of that, that in this difficult time that we're living, as an elected official, you have to be available and accessible to the people at all times. Not only putting together those town hall meetings to hear the community and listening to the need of the people, that is not happening right now. I think that we have to be available to the people 24/7 and be there to help them on the things that they need. Thank you.
A council person is responsible for communicating with its constituents and assessing the needs of the constituents so we can create productive and effective legislation, as well as approve or disapprove the budget from the administration, as well as work on various committees appointed by the president of the council. And that's it. That is the job of the council.
Mr. McCoy, would you like to continue with your second question?
Yes, Madam Clerk. My second question is to each of the candidates this evening, and it's basically on budgeting and finance, given the important role that the municipal council plays in governing and managing that process. My question is, what is your understanding of zero-based budgeting, and how would you apply this budget principle to Paterson's budget, given our city's transitional aid and its persistent structural deficit position? We'll start with Ms. and move the way down as well. Pardon? Oh, that's,
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. My understanding of budget is not on the capacity of an individual who already serves in the capacity of the office of city council now. But what I will say that when we're looking at the budget, even the 2020 budget, which was $285 million and some change, the taxpayers paid $159 million of that. That's 56% of the budget. And then we will look at the question I asked with the transitional aid. In the last 15 years, we have attained over $250 million of transitional aid. So with all that being said, that the taxpayers are feeling the burden of this. So whatever the budget process is, and what is my understanding of zero balance process, at some point, the city council need to work together, since they have the ability to adopt the budget. They also have the ability to remove line item to make sure that they decrease some of this relief from the taxpayer and begin to develop a plan that will alleviate us from depending on transitional aid. If you look at the record, Paterson have received more than half of any city in the state of New Jersey, while other cities are making that transition to fade away to depend on it. So we need to come up with a plan to be able to address that at some point, because we are leaving a bigger debt for the ones after us. So when I leave my house to my children, so we're talking about it might be a bigger burden, but will I have the opportunity to leave it to them? Because I won't be able to afford that. So yet, I will say that as a council person who have more experience on it would have understanding. But at the same time, the understanding of what is produced now, thank you.
We'll now move on to Mr. Mendes.
Sure, thank you, Madam Clerk. And
You're welcome, sir.
in the beginning, on the last question, I mentioned condition of transitional aid just because of this. In a lot of cases in the city, sometimes we've been forced, because of the transitional aid that we're receiving, to make those decisions, those financial decisions. And this is the right point to talk about this. I believe that our job and our responsibility here is going to be to sit down with administration and put a plan together, what is called a long-term plan. We cannot talk about this because we've been tied by the transitional aid guideline. And every year we're asking for more and more and more money, and there's not a long-term plan in place that is gonna help us to start decreasing that amount and not depending on transitional aid to be able to take those decisions that need to be taken to give our taxpayer a break. Thank you.
As far as a zero-based budget, as everyone mentioned, transitional aid, which is there to save jobs, prevent layoffs, and prevent service cuts. Because I am new to this is something that I would have to learn to make an educated response as far as thinking of innovative ways to wean off of the transitional aid in order for us to be a more stable and effective city economically. Thank you.
Mr. McCoy, do you have a third question?
Yes, Madam Clerk. My third question is to Sharif Bug and Robin Spencer. Paterson has lately been in the national news. In fact, the president has commented on Paterson often from his office. As a concerned citizen and a member of this community and this municipal council, who have provided dedicated service over the last 24 years to the residents of this community, I felt compelled to take legal action after the state's Attorney General leveled second and third degree charges against Mr. Mendes for voter fraud. Mr. Mendes has been charged with numerous felony charges, including election fraud, unauthorized possession of ballots, tampering with public records, according to the state Attorney General. As a candidate seeking a leadership position, I would like to know what actions did you take against this egregious wrong as it unfolded right here in our city and look to steal from the voters their right to a free and fair election? Mr. Boggs and Ms. Spencer.
Thank you. In many years as the resident of Paterson, and we know how politics plays itself out. It is a dirty, nasty game. And I would say that at the same time, I've been taught and raised that everyone have a chance to be able to do whatever they want to do or be wherever they want, regardless of the situation, but they have to be proven that they are guilty. They have to be convicted. That is not my place, and I don't think that's the city council place. And we learned that from when Councilman McCoy, we learned that watching the city council taking that same approach when Joey Torres was going through the same process. We were divided by the council, and the leadership have responded saying that until the person is convicted, it's in the court hand, it's in the police hand, we have to sit back and wait until the results have given to us and the legal aspect of it. So what is any different now? Because he's an opponent? I have to stand on that principle that a person have a right to present themselves and prove themselves innocent. And I stand on the principle that the person is not guilty until they're convicted. But even more, in this time frame, I think the residents more want to hear about our platform and concern. We already know that the situation is already in the legal aspect, so we'll wait for it, the result after that. But in the meantime, let's spend our time addressing the concern of the resident. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. We'll just move on to Ms. Spencer.
Yes. In regards to what you discussed as far as integrity, being on the council for as long as you have been on the council, before there was Joey Torres, and during several other elections, there was a discrepancy in fraud and charges. I answer with somewhat of a question stating that at what point did you think it wasn't important enough to encourage the Board of Elections to purge the database, since this was an ongoing problem, and it only concerned you when it actually affected you? And as a council person, you are representing the people, so you would want to be active when it affects other people besides you. That is a part of my answer. And to piggyback on Mr. Bug, being a person of integrity, being a person that comes from a family of law, yes, I believe in due process, because if we did not have, we have problems already today with police brutality and the discovery being withheld in regards to Breonna Taylor. So if you ask for a do-over, then I think as a man of integrity that you say you are, that we let due process take place and move forward, as you say, and allow the process to give us the result of the candidate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Mr. McCoy had completed his 3 questions, so we'll now move on to Mr. Alex Mendes, who will ask his 3 questions of his opponents. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome, sir.
And the first question that I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask that question to myself, because this is the only and the last time that I'm going to address this issue, because I believe that I'm here to talk about my platform and what I'm planning to do with the third ward resident and the change that I'm bringing into that area. But the question is, what happened, Alex Mendes? Have you been indicted? Have you been arrested? And I'm just gonna read, and I start my 2 minutes now. I'm gonna read that email that I received from my lawyer, Paul Brickfield. The email say, I was not arrested. I was issued a summons to appear in court. I have only been charged on a complaint by a state police detective. My case has not been presented to an independent grand jury who will determine if it's a probable cause exists and for an indictment. Without an indictment, the case cannot proceed. So as now, I have not been indicted. Despite numerous requests from my attorney, the state has declined to turn over the police report on my case, thereby preventing me from the opportunity to prove my innocence and have my day in court. And I'm reading this because it's very sad that the people that have been affected the most with all this accusation, calling me criminals, are my family, my children, my wife, my parents, and people that love me, people that knows that I'm being in this city, working for many years, helping people, because that's what I do, help people. I don't have a agenda that supports special interests. My agenda is Paterson and the resident of the city of Paterson. But it's sad that some people, like my opponent, they don't understand that. They don't know that. What happened with due process? What happened with innocent until proven guilty? The resident of the third ward in the last election in May voted unanimously to put me in office. And they took my right without a due process. They removed me from my seat. And I'm not afraid to run again, because all I do is to help people. And I will have my day in court to clear my name, and I'm going to continue serving this community, the community that I love, the people that I love that live here in the city of Paterson. Thank you.
Mr. Mendes, you may continue with your second question. Thank
Sure.
you.
The second question that I have is from my opponent. We all know that in the third ward, the conditions of our road are unacceptable. The conditions of our park are just unacceptable. Our maintenance in Eastside Park have been decreasing drastically. We pay more and more and more taxes than ever, and we're not receiving the service that we that we're paying for. I see some council members advocating through capital plan to fix some of the park. For example, Councilwoman at Large Lisa Means, through CDBG funding, fight for Bear Park. That was not your initiative. That is in the third ward. Councilman at Large Flavio Rivera and Ala de la C, they being lobby for the project on the park so Flavio Rivera, the Brandy Park in Marshall Street, and Councilwoman like other parks. Councilman Ala de la C, he's been lobbying to make sure that all the streets in the sixth ward are being repaired. And if you go to the sixth ward, you will see the condition very different than the third ward. And other than lobbying for yourself and job for your family, what have you done in the third ward, not including the Route 20 corridor? And because we all know that was the administration of Marty Bonds and Jeff Jones, and Marty Bonds and Mayor Torres, you just happen to be in office. I would like to know something specifically. That question will go for Councilman McCoy.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
I thought that was more of a try to make a political statement than a question. But what have I done with respect to parks? Certainly, Eastside Park could use additional funding. It's a large park. It's one of our largest parks in the city of Paterson. It's a crown jewel of our city. Clearly, you were not looking at the history. The horse barn was dilapidated and fallen down. It has now been rehabilitated and is a functioning building. Costed close to $750,000 to get that done. The Larry Doby Field was a baseball field that was in very much disrepair. It has now been rehabilitated, and in fact, we have a special contract just to cut the grass and to maintain the field that is up to standard, and that has been done. Millions of dollars there with collaboration with the Torp Foundation and that family in their support of the city of Paterson. The field house, the cricket house on the lower ball field was closed for many, many years. Did not have water, gas. The sewer line was broken for a number of time and kept it out of fruition. With the previous administration, we worked to get the sewer line fixed. That building now, close to another $750,000 invested. We have a handicap bathroom accessible for the first time in Eastside Park to service that community. So there's been great investment. The Vreeland Avenue Partnership, over $100 and something thousand invested in seeing how we can collaborate with business and residential operating within the same space on the same street to provide a productive and economic environment for small business that we will use to pattern and roll out across the city of Paterson. And you can't discount the Home Depot and the Route 20 corridor. I was there. I worked with Mayor Torres when he was a councilman, and I worked with him as mayor. And in fact, the McDonald's that's there now is largely because of my initiative working with the mayor to get that done. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Mendes, did you want to continue with your third question?
Sure, my third question.
Thank you.
My third question goes for, on the last NAACP meeting, Mr. McCoy make assumption of on me on the last election being a supporter of basement and attic, to legalize basement and attic. I don't know where he get that from. But this really bothered a constituent, and that person called me, and I did my homework on that. Mr. McCoy, he's been always talking about integrity, being honest, and I never refer back to him on any way or form But this time around, I would like to I have this question, and it's because he putting people at risk every day by what he's doing. Mr. McCoy, you have his house on 133, 135 Carbone Street, where you have illegal basement and attic rented. And I have, the receipt here they could just mention. They even send me those receipts because you make those assumptions. You know the law, you're a legislator, you always talk about integrity, you always talk about being honest, falsely accusing people of not being honest. Why you breaking the law if you know the law? And when it's good for other people, when other people do is bad, but when it's good for your pocket, it's good. I would like to know why you're breaking the law if you know the law. And I got the proof over here, and I'm closing my question with that.
Mr. Mendes, you're asking that question to Mr. McCoy?
Mr. McCoy.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy, you may begin, sir. Answer the question.
Mr. Mendes have been playing this little game, and he has been playing it for a long time. And I could delineate his source and the issues, and you can hold that up all you want. Believe me, that space is being occupied. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you, Mr. Mendes, up to you and Mr. Watson. As a grandfather and as a parent, I support my children, I support my grandchildren, and I do what I can to be in the best interest. And Mr. Watson, who is collaborating with you, should be ashamed of himself to come with this underhanded approach, knowing that he had his children and grandchildren on the street, and somebody provides support for them, and here you are with that nonsense. I think that's despicable. I think it's underhanded, and I think you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And tell Mr. Watson he can come and talk to me about his family and how he cares for them any day, and I'll go through that with him. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Mr. Mendes, you have completed your 3 questions. We'll now move on to Ms. Spencer, who will ask 3 questions of our opponents. Thank you, Ms. Spencer. You may begin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since I thought we would have an opportunity to share our initiatives, my first question will also be to myself. The first thing I would like to do is educate the community by way of some type of literature, homeowners, landlords, renters, and be given 30 days for them to learn, acclimate themselves with the laws and ordinances so we can begin fining and raising the quality of life. The other plan is the Green Plan. We have a director that works with the Green Plan. We have volunteers and organizations for cleanups, but as far as recycling, we should no longer be doing cardboard or glass because after investigation, it costs the city more. We should be using batteries, cartridges, plastics, and aluminum. As far as legislation, developers should have a questionnaire that should be answered standard questions such as how does it benefit the city of Paterson, does it provide temporary or permanent jobs, as well as will parking be included. Lastly, as far as pocket parks, certain pocket parks, not all of them, I would like to implement more greenery with flowers and making the community prettier, as that is a part of a quality of life. And since we are decorated with a very diverse culture, it is time for us to have food festivals, arts festivals, language classes, and incentive for citizenship. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Did you want to continue with the second question?
Yes.
To your opponents?
My second question goes to Mr. McCoy. In the Bible, Titus 3:9 says, "But to avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, quarrels about the law, for they are unprofitable and worthless. As a pastor and veteran counsel, do you think the behavior of sending out quarrels about the law depict leadership from either of your titles as pastor or veteran counsel, as we are here to represent the people and to raise the standard and have behaviorisms of model citizenship?
Thank you for the question. Let me be quick to correct, because this can get me in bigger trouble at home rather than anything else. I'm not a pastor. I am a minister, and I've been a member of my church for over 40 years, all of my life, really. So I take no offense to that. My brother is a pastor. Both my brothers are pastors. My sister is an executive pastor. My statement today and before and everything that I've put forth, I've been truthful and factual. The fact of the matter is, the Attorney General, the highest law enforcement officer in the state of New Jersey, charged Alex Mendes with 6 felony charges of voter fraud, tampering with evidence, and if you believe that the Attorney General is frivolous in his execution of that, then you have another thing coming. But I think the charges were there, it has been notified, and I want to make sure that the community is aware of that. And I thank you for your scriptural reference, but in my version of it, speak the truth and the truth will set you free. And so that's the position that I'm taking in this matter, that we are here to serve, and we ought to do that in a way that is honest and that we can be trustworthy in our delivery of services to our constituents. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Ms. Spencer, did you have a third question?
My third question is for all of the candidates. If you were not elected, which person on this panel would you vote for and why?
Did you want to begin with Mr. Bob?
Mr. Bug.
Okay,
Well-
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
If I wasn't a candidate, who I vote for, I'm not sure. Because some of the issues that matter to me and I believe that matters to the resident is not being addressed. I will look for a candidate that will speak for the seniors, who I'm very compassionate about, watching seniors trying to figure out how are they going to navigate through this new technology system as well to be able to live in a house that they have only known and they can't afford it. I haven't heard a platform that talked about recreation for our children. How will we push for it? How will we make it priority in our city? I haven't heard anything about really releasing the taxpayers, as I said before, paid $159 million of the budget. That's 56% of the budget. Pretty soon, it will be 60 and 70%. It will be close to 80%. And we're saying, as long as we get to transitional aid, it won't be high or it's not a lot as it was supposed to be. I disagree with that. We have to push a plan before this administration. If we find a way to mobilize with other council persons, to push resolution, to score points with other people or other developers, we can push for that too. We have to find a way to address those issues. So I haven't heard those plans. Those are very tears to my heart right now. Those are things that ponder me. So I can't really answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Bug. We'll move on to Mr. McCoy.
The same Bible you were reading from and quoted from, Ms. Spencer, I'll tell you how to entertain foolish and non-productive questions as well. So I think you need to read all of the Bible and get a good handle on that. I don't think that we ought to be sitting here talking about what if or fairy tales. What we ought to talk about this evening is how do we bring representation to this municipal council and to the third ward. And I've sat in this seat, I've provided service to this community and a host of other areas in terms of economic development, in terms of growth, in terms of representation, understanding of the budget, and delivering for the residents of the third ward in a very effective way. We can stay here and make personal accusations and all of that. It doesn't really benefit anyone. So I'm here to put forth that the best representation for the third ward is the representation that we have received. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Sound experience and proven leadership. Bill McCoy, one eye on the ballot. Thank you and God bless.
Mr. Mendes.
Thank you, and thank you, Robert Spencer, for the question. And I'm just going to answer this question with I will be very honest with this question. And honestly, I will definitely vote for it. If I'll not be here, I'm ready, and I know that I have what it takes to move the third ward around and to bring home ownership in the third ward, to hold the administration accountable, to fix the problem that we have in terms of safety and all the topic, to bring and save the historic district of the third ward. But I will vote for somebody different. We've been having the same person for 20 years in that position, and he's been a Robert Stanford administration, and that really hurt us. I'll vote for somebody that will never say, you know what, that will challenge administration when the administration increased the billing on almost $9 million. Voting yes in all the tax increased. High taxes is bigger than politics in the city of Paterson. People are losing their homes because they can't afford it to pay the taxes anymore. And if we don't understand that, we're wasting our time. We're going to have to take tough decisions, and you cannot be a Robert Stanford administration. You cannot be a yes man sitting here. You need to fight back. We need to hold the administration accountable to make sure that when they introduce that capital plan, the services are going to be included for the third ward resident on that plan. I will vote for that type of person. I know I have that on the agenda. I have a clear agenda, which is the people of Paterson first, not all the agenda, and that's the reason why I'm excited and I'm ready to get in this position, to be out there at the very next day, knocking on door and having conversation with our third ward residents and talk about how we're gonna bring homeownership back into the third ward, not giving the first-time homebuyer program over $1 million to a developer. We got to do things different in the city of Paterson. Our taxpayer, they paying for service that they're not receiving. The recycling is being declining drastically, the service. All the service, look at our park, look at the condition of our road. I'll vote for that person, and that person is me, Mendes 2I. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendes. We have now completed our second portion of the forum with our question and answers. Before we move on to our closing remarks, I would just like have a couple information for the voters. Regarding late night voter registration, anyone who's not registered to vote in this coming up election of November 3rd, 2020, last day to register to vote is Tuesday, October 13, 2020. Tuesday, October 13. The city clerk's office will be open from 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. to accept your voter registration forms. So you have any question, please call the city clerk's office at 973-321-1310. 973-321-1310. And just one reminder again, anyone who haven't received their mail-in ballot or have any questions pertaining to your mail-in ballot may contact the county clerk's office. And that number for the county clerk's office located at 401 Grand Street is 973-225-3632. So for your mail-in ballot or any questions, if you haven't received your ballot, you dial that number, 973-225-3632. At this time, we will now continue with our closing remarks from our candidates, and we'll begin in reverse alphabetical order. And we'll begin with Ms. Robin Spencer. Ms. Spencer, you may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk,
Yeah, but-
Clerk
Welcome.
and Deputy Clerk, as well as the Third Ward and residents of City of Paterson, and my fellow candidates. In closing, I hope that you have had the opportunity to see who is here for you, who is here for a title, who is here for the fluff, questions that weren't answered and fluffed around, ideas that are floating in the wind without substance. And I hope you recognize we have a decorated ward, and it's time for us to address the barriers. We need to break down the barriers, and that will uplift the quality of life, as well as bring job fairs for the unemployed, encourage economic development, have a resourceful hub to provide information for all, as well as mobilize resources for seniors and occupy the abandoned homes to deter vagrants from our neighborhood. It is with hope that you will change this unfortunate political game, as this local government directly affects you. You are the number. Everything that we do is representation of you. So I hope that you want better and will vote different for Robin Spencer, for November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. We'll now move on to Mr. Alex Mendes for his 5 minutes closing remarks. Mr. Mendes, you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
To our Third Ward resident in the City of Paterson, once again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for the great support that you gave me in May. Please, I'm looking forward to receive the same support and allow me to put my plan in place for the Third Ward. Let's bring back our historic district. And I would like to talk about how we're gonna bring the Third Ward back. We're planning with our team leaders to create a neighborhood watch program like never before. We have to bring that back in place. We're going to organize our Third Ward block by block, having a captain on each block that is gonna be working directly with me to address the quality of life issues that we're facing. We're planning to prepare that welcome package to the Third Ward resident. Whoever moves in the Third Ward will know the laws and regulations that we have in place. We need to bring quality of life back into the Third Ward. The crime, the Third Ward is not safe anymore. We see drug transaction in a broad daylight in most of the corner of our historic district because it's very close to the highway and it's easy for criminals to come in and commit a crime and get back into the highway. I'm gonna work to make sure that we put a quality of life unit in place to patrol those areas. Every city that have highway closed, that's common sense. I'm gonna put that in place to make sure that we work on that. We always talk about high taxes. How we control the taxes. We have to stop approving those 30-year tax abatement for investors that are coming into our city. They buy those property and they build the 30 and 40 unit and they get those abatement. Who gave us any abatement in our as a taxpayer? Nobody. How I'm gonna fight back on that? I'm gonna work really hard on a home ownership program to make sure that we spend those resources on Patersonian to make sure that they could become homeowners. We have a lot of houses around the historic district and in the Third Ward that are still closed. Instead of selling the house to a developer on an auction, I refuse to take that action. I prefer to help a Patersonian to purchase the house, to fix the property, and live there and feel pride of our area. And that's the way that we're gonna take the historic district back. That's the way that we're gonna bring back the community. Now, look at Eastside Park. Eastside Park, it's been dilapidated, it's been going down. We see all kind of illegal activity at the park because we don't have police officers patrolling the park. As your councilman, I'm gonna sit down with the county and we're gonna have a serious conversation on a shared services agreement that we're gonna put in place. It was a disgrace what happened last year that we we try to receive funding from other city, our neighboring city, to control our own park. I refuse to that. I look forward to sit down with the county to bring safety into Eastside Park, and also with the team leaders, we have a plan in place, which is Friends of Eastside Park, where we're gonna all committed to maintain the park and have activity, have those fair at the park to bring everybody together. And I would like to say that those ideas are coming not from me, they're from our third ward resident. I've been knocking on doors and I've been getting those incredible ideas, and I'm looking forward to put it in place to bring our third ward back. You all know that I love to walk, I love to be in the street, to be in contact with the people, because I learned one thing, and it's that there's no way that you're gonna be able to help the community if you're not connected to the people. And I could promise you that I will never change. I will be available and accessible to your need. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind when it comes to high taxes, yes, we could make it happen. Yes, we could control it. We have, as a councilman, I will be looking into those new positions that the administration has been opening. How can we gonna have 2 assistant BA? In the city, we have now 2 assistant BA. That's more money in the back of, our taxpayer, more responsibility. We have to look the budget line item by line item, and we have to start taking things out of that budget, because we are in a very difficult time, and it's time to take tough decisions, Paterson. Third ward resident, it's time to look out for you. It's time to put you on the agenda. We got to take a special interest out of the agenda. Please, vote for somebody different. It's time for a change in the third ward. 20 years, having the same person sitting there with no result, and you will see the result in your street, you see the result in your corner, you see how the quality of life has been going down, you see that the service have been decreasing drastically, but yes, you pay more and more taxes. You cannot enjoy even the park, and that's something that we have to keep in mind. This election this is a very tough time, and your decision is gonna be the decision that's gonna change our city. Alex Mendes, 2I. Thank you so very much, and thank you, Madam Clerk, for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mendes. We'll now move on to Mr. McCoy for his closing 5 minutes remarks.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I agree with one thing Mr. Mendes has said this evening, is that this election is a profound election. It's a crucial election that will decide the trajectory of the third ward. And I'm here as Councilman Bill McCoy. Yes, I have been serving for 20 years. That's a long time. I've been elected 5 times to the municipal council. I've served 5 times as a council president. And the reason is that my colleagues had my faith and confidence in my leadership, my understanding of the budget, my understanding of the systems and process, and the hard work that I put in every day on behalf of you, the residents of the third ward. We have made progress, undoubtedly. My colleagues can criticize all they want. All they have to do is to ride up on Vreeland Avenue, ride down on the Route 20 corridor, and you'll see the results of our work over this time. We went back to the record, and going all the way back to 2002, where, and prior to that, where the Home Depot development really started. We had a fight and a battle on the municipal council as to whether or not to support that project going forward. And the ideas that I put forth won the day, and now we're reaping the economic benefits of that, and we'll be reaping it for many, many years to come. The efforts that we have put in restructuring our city government, the very telephone number that we called today, the 321, started not with city government, but when I was on the school board and advocated for the E-rate, $23 million or so came to the city of Paterson. Our public schools are one of the best wide area network of any school district in the state, got the highest funding. Why? Because we worked hard with Steve Cohen in putting that plan forward. I know what it's like to build a budget. I work on a $25 million budget personally for the Jersey City Board of Education, and I handle my personal finance in a way that shows that I have a good understanding. I'm an accountant by training. I have been your public servant for 20 years, more than that, and I've been faithful, I've been true, and delivered for you. The Route 20 corridors has given us over $3 million annually in revenues. Who can speak of that? Mr. Mendes was on the council for 8 years. Why hasn't he told you about his record of accomplishment? Why haven't he shown you where he implemented all of these wonderful ideas that he thinks he has? Why hasn't he shown you the product of his labor? There has been none. He has no accomplishment, no result, no achievement. What you've seen from Councilman Bill McCoy, I deliver, not just empty promises, not just wishful ideas, but practical, tangible results that are evident every single day and are contributing to the development of the city of Paterson. Eastside Park needs much improvement, but we have invested much in the park. I told you, we have developed the horse barn, we have developed the field house, we have developed the Larry Doby field, and we have a plan for the walkway reconstruction. There's conversation now about looking to collaborate with the county in a way of getting additional funding to our parks. And yes, we collaborated with Elmwood Park because of the outside visitors that came to Eastside Park and play their loud music and do all kinds of nonsense. We needed assistance. Our police was under pressure, and the chief recommended that idea, and we tried it, and quite frankly, it worked. One of our serious problems, loud noise in the neighborhood. Sharon Easton, a police officer at the time, implemented and spearheaded a quality of life unit that was very effective during the period of time that it was done. Those functions are administrative functions. We can advocate, we can support, but it's the responsibility of the administration. And as a council person, we need to understand and know the difference and the separation that we as one person cannot do anything. You talk about all of the issues that have gone forward. You sat on the council for 8 years while that was happening and couldn't do anything about it. So what my effort has been is clear, to be an effective advocate for the 3rd Ward, and I've been doing that successfully. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. Let's move forward. Let's continue the progress. Let's continue the development. Vote one eye for sound experience and proven leadership. Thank you. God bless. Be well. Stay safe. And let's continue to build together. We are stronger together. We are better together. We can do this moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We'll now move on to Mr. Bugg, who will give his closing 5 minutes closing remarks. Mr. Bugg, you may begin.
3rd Ward of the resident. I've stood where you stood on many times when it comes to the point of choosing who's going to represent me. I stood at that ad based on what the person said and how flattering their word was and what they said they were going to do and what they can do. I stood at that ad with you. And then when you make that vote, you find yourself in the worst situation was before you voted. I've heard that over and over the 800 doors that my wife and I knocked on, that we talked to. We heard that cry that some of you trying to figure out how to save your house. We heard that cry that when you called the police, you get no support with the people that violated. I heard that cry when you go down Park Ave. You can't literally get through there. It's a maze. It's a circus. I've heard that cry from bus drivers on the New Jersey Transit when I rode on the buses that they literally can't get through Park Ave. I heard that cry that you can't take your kids to the park because it's so nasty, the bathroom, and it's so terrible. I heard that cry. So when you're pleading like that, you can't continue to vote the same way to expect a different result. I've heard that cry, that no one is accessible. When you make that phone call, you can't get access to who's supposed to represent you. But now is the time to change that. You have someone who's willing to be transparent. You have someone who's willing to be accessible. How do you know that? Look into the record. When May 12th was done, the election was over, I continued to work. When I wasn't accepted to be a part of the census count by this administration, I didn't stop. What I did, I said, you know what, the census is important. I am going to push it. I hosted 3 or 4 events pushing the census. I reached out to some churches who allowed me to have their Bible study platform to present the census. I didn't get paid for it. Why? Because I felt that was important. And also, I understood the importance of being consistent and responsive. That's what we need. Don't look into all that or be brought into all that years of experience or just knowledge of that. Sometimes that can get you in trouble because especially with those knowledge and they're not doing the right thing or being responsive, guess what? It repeats itself where now that you're paying as a taxpayer 56% of the budget, guess what? Because there's no voice and no representative, you'll be paying 70% of the budget. You and I can't afford that. We are at the edge of losing. We're at the edge. Everything we work for slipped out of our hand because someone wants to be irresponsible. Someone wants to look the other way and not be a voice for you. That's not me. Yet I don't have all those years of experience. I would acknowledge that. But guess what? Many of them didn't have it when they first started. They had to grow. But when you grow, when you nurse and grow, there should be evidence of change. And I heard that cry, there wasn't no change. Let me ask you this question. Would you keep going to a dentist that every time you go there, their teeth falling out? Would you keep doing that? No, you would choose another dentist. Regardless of all the schooling that they have and all the knowledge they have, you would choose another dentist. Why stop now when it concerns to the safety of your children? Why stop now when it's concerned your house? Why stop now when it concerns hitting your pocket? You choose different. You don't keep going the same way and expecting a different result. I have proven myself to be consistent and reliable. Many of you have called on me. When you get no response, why keep going that direction? We can't afford to sing. We need assets for our seniors to be able to be mobilized. We need resources for them. We need something for our young people. We need to be advocating for them. And the best way to advocate for them is having a relationship with them. And it's important that you have a town hall meeting regularly to hear the concern. It is important that we have people in the community. That's why I will develop a liaison from each district, that we're meeting regularly, hearing the concern, because every concerns are different in every ward. But guess what? It's the opportunity to bring us all together. So one ward, or one district rather, is not getting all the attention, but everyone voiced are being heard. That's what I would do. So in order to do that, I need your vote. I need your support. I need you to be able to look at that ballot and say, 5I is for me. Because I'm not running for me, I'm running for you. So Sharif Bug on the ballot, 5I. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bug. This ends the third section of our forum, and I would like to thank everyone for being here today. The voters of the third ward, your candidates on the third ward ballot is Chauncey I. Brown III, Mr. Sharif Bug, Mr. William Bill McCoy, Mr. Alex Mendes, and Ms. Robin Spencer. At the bottom of your mail-in ballot, those candidates are listed on the ballot. On election day, when you receive your mail-in ballot, you vote for your candidate of your choice. In closing, on behalf of the Honorable Flavio Rivera, Honorable Dr. Lilisa Mims, Vice President, and Rivera, the Council President, and the Honorable Council members, I would like to thank all the second ward and third ward candidates who participated in the forum today. The second ward candidates, we heard them today at 1 p.m., and we would like to wish you good luck, everyone, on election day. I'd like to say thank you to my Deputy Clerk, Ms. Jacqueline Murray, City Clerk and City Council staff, Mr. Ming, who handles the cable, and Ms. Nancy Greer, and also DPW staff who ensured that the council chambers was thoroughly cleaned so we could feel very comfortable being in the chambers today. I would like to say thank you to the DPW staff. Again, thank you to everyone, and wish you all the best on Election Day. Good night, everyone. Thank you.